Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hockey Toolkit, Season 2, Episode 7. He finally gets it. I am Trevor DiCarlo.
I'm Andrew Trimble.
And we are your hosts, like I said, of the Hockey Toolkit, Season 2, Episode 7. That was a real tongue twister. I don't know.
Well, it's 27 overall, so I got a big question for you, Trevor. Who is the best hockey number 27? A lot of greats.
I couldn't even think of one off the top of my head right now because I'm still
Oh,
stuck
come on.
on Season 2, Episode 27. Give me.
Oh, you're looking on your phone. Look at you. You're cheating already.
I don't know. I mean, I should have known this. Like, why did I not know it? And yeah, I was kind of cheating, but
Well,
who do I think is the best? Probably oh, I don't know. You are right. I'm gonna let you go first. Go ahead. You go first, and then
in the mid 90s in the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area, you had three good number 27s. You had Derek King on the Islanders. He had like multiple 40-goal seasons, kind of flew under the radar. For the Rangers, you had Alexei Kovalov. Whew, good
wow,
number 27.
I'm so mad I forgot that.
And then for the Devils, you had Hall of Famer, one of my favorite players ever, Scott Niedermayer.
So mad.
So that'd be my 27. It wouldn't be Daryl Sittler. It'd be Scott Niedermayer.
Well, I mean, those are some pretty good ones. Not, are you sure it's not going to be John Tonelli? You sure?
It's not John Tonelli. It's not Ryan McDonough.
What about the great Jeremy Roenick?
Jeremy Roenick. I figured from Chicago.
I know. I told you it's been a long day already, and it's I've already butchered the intro, but I would actually, if I were to take any of them, I would definitely take Niedermayer first. Just because he adapted. God, could you imagine if he played in today's game?
Right out west his whole career. Holy smokes. I mean, he was so good. Every time he got on the ice, he dominated the ship. He controlled the pace of play. He was like,
I mean, I think he'd be better than. I think he's better than Carlson.
He'd be different than Carlson because he was so good defensively too.
That's what I mean. Like, I think he would
didn't give up much.
No, right. I mean, again, think of how many points he could have put up if he did not have to play under, Jacques Lemaire and all the, the left wing lock and all that BS in New Jersey. But hey, it worked for him. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm sure he's glad he got the championships.
He's got
he's
4
in the
cups.
hall.
He's got 4 rings. That's not too bad.
And he's in the hall. So I guess it all worked out in the end. But my God, if he were playing in today's game, I mean, he would be the best, in my opinion, probably the best defenseman in the league, right? Because of his ability to just high offensive ability plus his ability to play defense. I don't think there's anybody that would be able to match it.
Yeah, I remember when probably was his rookie season. And, I watched all the games when I was a kid. I watched every single Devils game.
91, 92, right? Okay.
Something like that.
See, I know that, but I can't figure out who 20, but go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
But there was a play like he pinched or something, and he was the weak side D, and there was a puck that was kind of went the other side, and the attacking player, I think it was like somebody on Ottawa or something like that, had like a full neutral zone breakaway, and he caught up to him by like the hash marks, and he was a full zone away. And I was like, is this guy for real? Holy smokes. He was that good a skater.
That's unreal. Just those types of players. He was definitely it's tough. Would you say he's a generational player? I mean, I feel like I could say yeah, because I mean he was one of the best. The problem was that he was in Nick Lidstrom's shadow.
Yeah.
I think that was, and no offense, I mean he was in New Jersey, so it wasn't like, despite people would only really notice him when the ABC would put those games on during the Stanley Cup Finals because that's when they would be there. Outside of that,
sure.
like he was in the shadow of being in New Jersey and in Lidstrom's, but
and he also the whole decor, like I mean, Scott Stevens never won a Norris Trophy. Scott Stevens, has almost 1,000 points, and multiple times was the plus minus leader in the entire NHL, and was terrifying.
Well, yeah, but people forget how good offensively he was too. Like You got him with Danico. You got who else am I missing here? So you got those two.
Bruce Driver was really good. Rafalski
Rafalski
was
was
great.
towards the end there, but Rafalski, yeah, I mean that's a great defense. And then you've got Broder and that who I still think Hasek is the greatest of all time, and
I don't disagree.
I think Broder. Only reason he's got more wins and stuff is because he played the team that played in front of him as well. Not to take anything away from him, but that's why I think Hasek just. But that's we can talk about goaltending another day. But
But the thing about Brodeur though too, like people don't realize he's got the win total because he played so many freaking games. If
oh
you went
yeah,
to a Devils game in the 90s or the 2000s, Brodeur was in nets. I mean, he played like 70 games every year.
yeah, he set the record. I want to say for in a season for games played, and it was definitely I want to say it's like 78.
It's
See,
crazy. Yeah.
I know these things, but I can't tell you number 27 is because yeah, see, it's pick and choose what my brain comes up with. But yeah, so our episode number 27 overall, but this is season 2, episode 7, and we'll be talking a little bit about basically drills here in a little bit. But first, trying to catch up. We're right here at the end of the holiday. The actual holiday, 1-1. But how was your holidays, coach?
It was great. I got to go see my mom and my sisters down in New Jersey. Spent the holidays down there. We came back just in time though for my son's. He had a tournament in Rhode Island right after the Christmas holiday, and then we were here for New Year's. And now our teams are starting up today. They had their first. It was basically an optional skate, an optional gym as kids are traveling back to town. But we'll really be in the full swing of things tomorrow. How about yourself, Trevor?
Yeah, we played a game right before the end of I think we played it on the 23rd. Um we won. It was a good game. It was close against a team that we had previously lost to. And outside of that, after that, everybody kind of just dispersed and we're basically on like a holiday break. We do have ice still for our teams, but outside of that, hockey, we're just kind of playing it by ear and whoever shows up, we kind of combined with the other with the 2013 team. We just kind of scrimmage and stuff. But my personal holidays, you know what? They're fun. Nothing crazy, nothing, nothing negative. Nothing so I can't complain. Sometimes just low keys works for me.
Absolutely. What did Santa get you?
Yeah, Santa was he was kind of a prick this year. He didn't give me too much. No, uh, I mean, I got some, again, I get a lot of gift cards.
Yep.
Again, just for like Amazon and then, your basic gift cards. Got a couple new shirts that I was very excited to have. A nice flannel shirt that I don't have any flannels, so now I do. I guess that's a rite of passage of getting older. And outside of that, I mean, my the team I coach, they went all out. Um, One parent gave me I forgot what it is, but it's got alcohol in it, and it definitely would knock me out if I drank the whole thing. And then but the whole team itself, I got this giant thing. I mean, I'm looking at it right now because I haven't even put a dent in it. It's a giant cardboard box, and it's just like it's full of Reese's peanut butter cups, like packages. But when you look at it, it looks like one giant Reese's, and it would be like probably the size of I don't know, God, it'd probably be the size of like a dodgeball or something. So I was like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, I gotta get this out of my car. There's gonna be just Reese's wrappers everywhere. And then some other odds and ends and stuff. A nice team ornament. So actually, I think my team was much more nicer than Santa was this year. That's for sure.
Well, that means you got kids that like you. That's good.
Doing something right if the parents are
For
willing to do
sure.
that. But and again, they gave us some gift cards as well. So I can't complain. It's always appreciative of, I'm always appreciative of those types of gestures because um, you know, they don't have to do those things. And I'm one of those people that coaches that get something for my team managers. Well, this year I've got two, so team managers and my assistant coaches, and actually this year because I got tired of like buying gift cards for adults and then I know
Yeah.
they end up using them for kids. So I was like, what can I get them that they can't give to their kids or let their kids have? And I was like, oh, that's right, booze. So I ended up buying a couple bottles of wine, some I don't know, I'm not a big IPA or craft brew guy, but I bought a couple of different of those based on the recommendations their wives had given me for my assistant coaches. So yeah, they basically everybody made out pretty well. I'll just put it that way. So,
That's
uh,
awesome.
yeah, I just feel like it's the least I can do, especially when especially the team managers, they're just volunteers. So, um, but yeah, so that was my holidays, and I'm sticking to it. That's my story. I did not watch Christmas Story at all this year, so I'm happy because I've seen it so many damn times.
Yeah, we're due for like a new. Elf was probably the last Christmas music movie that came out that everybody really is a
Yeah,
consensus like all timer. I think we're due for another new good Christmas movie.
I mean, it'd be great. I mean, don't get me wrong, Christmas Story is a classic, but I've seen it so many times. Elf, seen it plenty of times. But yeah, I agree. I mean, Die Hard, I think, is probably the best Christmas movie overall.
I recommended to watch that with. Told my wife, I said, like, I think Bear and I should watch Die Hard this year. It's a Christmas movie, and she was like, no, no. But I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it sounds like a great idea. But yeah, so I mean, what do you want to jump into?
Let's talk about some drills. I think, everybody when they're everybody has an emphasis on drills when they're putting together a practice plan, when you're putting together a curriculum for a season or a camp.
Talking about
You have to
practice. Talking about practice. Come on.
you got to have the right drills to make your team successful. And I think a lot of times people fall into the crux of getting the fanciest or the most exciting drill and like liking a drill, but it's really about the overall picture, what the practice or the season is going to look like. So I think it's a good opportunity for us to jump into what are some of our philosophies on drills. And we have a great guest coming up later who explores that topic a little more. So Trevor, what are some of your favorite drills and how do you utilize drills in a practice?
Um, some of my favorite drills. I mean, what's funny is everybody's got different names for like the same drills. Um, but I mean, the drills that I really like and again, and it kind of depends on the team, but the ones that I like are the up tempo. Um, you know, it's fine if we run through it a couple times at half speed, but then I want it to be full speed. I want it to be game like. I want the pressure to be on you, but I also want drills that where it's not always just one predetermined outcome. And I've seen a lot of this being talked about online, um, in the sense of, like, oh, try and not have kids just go around tires and cones the whole time. And I agree to a certain extent, but I also disagree because I think, if you're working on skills and stuff, there is some importance to that. But for me, like some of my favorite drills right now, um, throughout a season, I don't really run too many. Like I maybe have 10, 15 drills tops that I run through the whole season. Um, and you know what? They're drills that I've used from squirts all the way up to midgets. And again, a lot of them are just, passing related, shooting related, skate. I mean, all the skills, but also I can pick and choose how I design them to, is it an offensive zone drill? Are we working on this? Are we working on that? So, I mean, it's tough for me because it's kind of a loaded question. Like, I guess you could say if you were asking specifically which drills are my favorite, but I really like going with the ones where kids have to think, players have to think, they don't have a lot of time to think, and we're playing at an up tempo pace. It's not a slog, it's not a slow, because nothing drives me more up a wall than watching kids stand and sit back, like take a knee or they're out of the
Yeah.
drill for a long time. How about yourself, coach?
Well, a couple things. Team practices are different than skill sessions. I think I posted on the Hockey Focus maybe a week or so ago the clock drill, which is a very simple, basic skating drill that you can do really with any age level, and it'll be a challenge for them, whether it's U8 or U20s. Transitioning at each crux of the a circle, 12, 6, 3, and then 9,
Yep.
and going around that twice. You really got to hold your edges. You got to transition quickly. You got to make sure that you're going at a speed and tempo that's challenging. That's a great skill drill that I really enjoy doing with all age levels on my skill session days. When it comes to team practices, I don't generally like full ice one-on-one scenarios. We want to try to avoid those things, but I
Right.
do like a small area one-on-one. So oftentimes, we'll do a warm-up drill with the Wolves here, and we'll have like basically something to get the goalies involved and get some passing, get some movement early on in the practice session, and then we'll go right into 15-second puck battles with in a one-on-one scenario in a small area where you guys and they have one puck and they're competing for it. And some kids will really make the most of those situations. Other kids will kind of take the time off. But if you do that over the course, that can make a big difference in your ability to win pucks, keep pucks, extend plays. And it's just a very simple drill that I think that isn't you do that 100 times a game. Then I do like small area games. I really, there's so many variations that you can either begin a practice with or finish a practice with or throw in the middle of a practice that can have a lot of different concepts and can really make a big difference in your team's overall ability to communicate, to make plays in a small area, and to think the game really well, which is something that Craig hits on a little bit later.
Yeah, no, I mean definitely with the this year, for example, like I don't know, like the last probably 2, 3, 4, 5 years beforehand in coaching. I mean, I had midgets and then I had a peewee team. And I was very fortunate with those teams where we just had full ice for the teams. Um, so I was able to structure around, using zones for each one. Like my assistant will take the kids on, half the team on one side and I'll take that on the other half. Where I really didn't have to break the zone down into quarters like this year, where not even quarters, but I guess you could say the zone in half. Um, but more or less because we've got one session where it's just half ice, which was new for me. And, in the last newer, I guess you could say, it's not like I haven't had it running before, but um, it was different because now I'm designing drills that are using only a quarter of it or half of a zone. And trying to work around that. And it's, again, small area games are great when you've got the right type of constraints in there. Um, and even those are good. Again, I have 9 U's, so it's a little different, but even for like, skill based stuff, um, there's it's been really made me how to think outside the box on, hey, what do we need to really work on besides the typical, like five skills, five, basic skills and such. So yeah, that's been a huge one this year, really, is just thinking outside the box. And trying to, create my own drills. What are you do you have set drills? I mean, we all have set drills, but do you ever sit there and just like, you know what, I'm gonna, create a drill and this is how we're gonna do it?
Yeah, sometimes I'll like a lot of the 5-on-5 stuff, like I'll add a puck in or a face off in or a regroup in after the initial sequence is over. That is kind of like I had maybe a template for the drill. Then, I want to slow it down and break it down. So we'll have like a second element to it that I've kind of added into the drill. So sometimes I do that. And it's really important, I think, coaches to, use that whistle and, stop a drill. If a kid's doing it incorrectly or the team isn't getting the concept, slow it down, take 30 seconds. Don't take 5 minutes, take 30
Right.
seconds and break it down, because if you're not pointing out what they're doing wrong, they're never going to be able to get to do it right. So I think there's a real point to that for sure.
All right. Well, I'm gonna get my PSA then out of the way if we're gonna go right to it there. My biggest thing is my pet peeve with practices and when running drills is that coaches, like, if you've got kids standing there and they're not doing anything, and I've watched this over the years, and at one rink I was at recently, I don't know, it was a mite team. Okay. Using half the ice and only 3 kids were skating and the other kids were taking a knee. And it was like, okay, we're going to swap out one kid for another, like one at a time. And okay, you do the drill. I think maybe every kid, I don't even know. I felt like some kids didn't even touch the puck or didn't even touch the drill. And they're using, again, half ice. They're only using one half of that half ice. I was like, why not just take the same drill, flip it, move it to the other side? You've got 5 coaches on the ice, use them all, and now all the kids are getting more reps. So, like, coaches, shut up on the ice, keep it simple, and keep the kids moving. That's
I,
it.
I, I love that, Trevor, and I agree with it 1,000%. My pet peeve, if we're going to, this is full tangent mode for
Might as well. Yeah,
Trevor,
let's get it out.
Trevor. my pet peeve is when, so let's say you have 3 teams on the ice.
Yep.
Okay. And that means you're using all 3 zones and every team gets a zone. They can do their drills within that zone. Maybe you have a combined section at the beginning, which is some skating for the first 10 minutes to warm up. And this is mostly at the youth level with like
Yeah.
10U or 12U and younger. I watched one year, a local team never had any other zone except the neutral zone. Coaches, will you communicate and work together? The
Yeah.
goalie needs a crease, man.
or at least
There's no
draw a
crease in the
crease.
neutral zone.
No, at least draw a crease. And that brings me to a question that I was thinking about earlier. I was going to ask you, and might as well fire it off now because we're in that point. Is when you run drills, coach, do you run drills where you're moving the net, or do you keep drills pretty simple? And this is more or less towards the small area games because I know there's two different trains of thought. One is if I move the net where I'm making it like cross ice 3-on-3, that really doesn't develop, or that's kind of detrimental to the players and the goalies, especially because they don't have their crease and that's not how the game is played. But I've also heard, and where those coaches then flip it, they want one single net. They want it in the crease, and they're going to design their games around that one net.
So
Do you have a
I do.
preference? Do you care? Do you not? I mean,
Yeah, I like to stack my drills. So if I have three drills where the net's in the crease, we're going to do those three drills in so I'm not moving the net multiple times. And then if we go to cross ice and I have two drills that involve that cross ice scenario, that'll finish the practice or start the practice, but they'll be stacked together so that we're not moving the net back and forth. That's just kind of a waste of time to me. Uh, I did have a mite practice for Barron's team maybe 2 weeks ago, and I didn't realize it. The coach actually said it to me at the end of practice. I had four cones out there, or four tires, and I did three or four different drills, but they all involved the same tires, but it just was and the same groups of kids, but we just flip flopped what the drill was. It would start off as like a one-on-one race coming out of the corners. Then it became a one-on-one angling drill on each side, and then it became a footwork drill in which they're working on the transitional footwork going through those tires, and an obstacle course. So I think you can maximize the time if you stack the drills like that, where if you're not moving the nets, you're not wasting time.
right. No, I mean, the coaches I was talking about were like, they were adamant about not wanting to play cross ice games. And this is for any age group. I mean, for the older age groups, they didn't like moving the net because they're like, it's not realistic to the game. And I was just like, okay. And I could see there what their point was. So like they were just like, we want to play, you know, 3-on-3 in the zone, but maybe the constraint is the coach is the transition you got to pass to the coach. And there's drills that you can easily do in the zone. Hell, I do one that's a transition game where it's just depends on which team gets it. And that's in the zone. The net never moves. But again, like some of these coaches, and I forgot where I was. It was a topic of discussion, but I want to say it was like, but it was coaches at that level. And they're like, no, we want to leave the net where it's at. And I'm just like, we're not use cross, but what about cross ice? But so I don't know. I mean, I was just curious what your thoughts were. I think it just depends on what you're trying to teach and how you're trying to teach it and who gives a shit where the net is, as long as you're working on the things you need to. I mean, the kids can pretty much figure out, players can figure out where the net's going to be in a game. That doesn't change. Unless you got a crazy goalie, but
Yeah, I would say with that one now that you articulate the question, like I get what you're saying. I would say that when you do make cross ice, though, it's more game realistic on the breakout and the forecheck because the nets are facing each other. So you have an F1 on a forecheck, and then
yep.
you have to identify get on the D side of that puck. Whereas if it's just one net and you're passing to the coach, the D side changes so quickly, and it's not like a realistic breakout. You can oftentimes just go one pass right up to the middle to the coach or whoever may be the designated player to pass to, and it's just a different breakout because it's a stationary target. So I would say that there is value a lot in the cross ice look from those perspectives.
Absolutely. No, and I completely agree. I guess my last question to you before we hit our interview here is in regards to, and now I'm drawing a blank. Man, I am just completely off this episode. What was my
Oh, you're
question?
crushing it, Trevor. Don't
What
go
was
there.
my question gonna be? Damn it. Um, there we go. Got it. So in regards to like organizing your drills, I mean, I know you just, well, you've been doing it longer than I have as coaching, but I've seen so many drills. I've ran so many different drills over the years. I've seen other coaches, or I've been taking part on teams that we ran so many different drills. How do you keep all those drills organized? If you actually keep them, or do you just kind of go by on the fly? Do you have like a binder full of drills, full of different areas, or what does basically your drill book look like?
So that's a great question. So I don't know if you know this, Trevor. I don't know if you know this, but Rick Trimble published 3 successful volumes of the Ultimate Hockey Drill Book in the mid 90s.
He's not.
If you Google it, you can check it out. Dad, I'm getting you funds from the grave, buddy. Uh, he had these two. He was a note taker, so like my dad was a teacher, and he always took notes. He would highlight every book. He would take notes on lectures, and he would start to go to my practices and other people's practices because he was like a nonstop rink rat, and just take notes in binders of drills.
I love it.
And then he found that he had thousands of drills. So he had the first 2 volumes were published, uh, I think about 95, 96, and you can get them on Amazon still. And they're also, he sold them locally at the Ocean Hockey Supply. And then he came up with a 3rd volume years later, and Championship Productions came out with a couple of videos based upon those drill books.
I've seen
So
that.
he was a note taker. And then I kind of incorporated that when I first started out coaching. I have a bunch of different binders, like, and I write them on paper. I'm not that tech savvy. So I still write them out, draw them out. And I go back to those things when I want to get that information to incorporate in a practice. How about yourself, Trev?
So for myself, I mean, I do have a complete like 5, 6 different books full of drills. I've got all the USA hockey ones, like, so I guess I have those in those areas. For myself lately, and here's their unsolicited, unsponsored plug, but I use a lot of the coach basically icehockeysystems.com. I use their what I have an account, so I use their software to draw up drills. And again, I've gone through and I've maybe made 60 different drills just because I try not to use too many different drills throughout a season. So um I've only been using it since after COVID. So that tells you a whole lot about the different drills. But I use their website and I use their platform and their software, and I drop the drills through there. Um, and I find it, not only do they have great drills on their own already, so I can kind of go in there and snipe ones and like, oh yeah, I like this one, and I can just add it to my, my practice for that one. But also being able to have the ones that I have, I'm able to just take that and honestly just forward it out to, once I create the practice plan, I just forward it out to my assistant coaches or whomever. And it's pretty cut and dry. Pretty simple to understand and pretty easy to use. So I've got a bunch of different resources. If I see something I really like, yeah, I mean, I'll typically do what, you just said. I'll go on, piece of paper, I'll draw it up and put it somewhere so that the next time I see it, I put it either in, a binder, or I basically draw it up and put it on my, keep it in my practice log over at Ice Hockey Systems. So
I love
that
that.
that was not a sponsored plug, because if it was, it would have been 10 times better. But I mean, honestly, I feel like digitally it's just easier for me to keep it all there instead of having different binders and stuff. That's my
Well,
own personal thing.
that's great, Trev. I think it's, I've seen some of those things shared with me from other coaches, and it blows away what I'm putting together. But I also have a very short attention span, so that's a personal weakness that I have to work on and improve.
Well, my
Uh,
old job, I get bored pretty easily, so I'd be sitting there and be like, what drills can I draw up today?
you think that's a good segue for Coach Russell?
Well, let's get her going.
All right, hockey fans, here with us, we have Craig Russell. He's the head coach at Plymouth State University. He started coaching there in the early 2000s. He started off as an assistant coach after playing there, and now has had tremendous success with that program. A number of MASCAC championships, able to make the NCAA tournament at the Division III level, and they're rocking and rolling. So welcome to the podcast, Craig.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
Now, our topic of discussion today is drills and how you incorporate them in practice. If you can just give the fans at home some kind of information on how you like to structure practices, how you like to start with your drills, what drills you like to go first, what drills you like to kind of hit in that meat of the practice, and then kind of what drills you like to generally finish your practice with.
Yeah, interesting. I think it really depends on the time of week that we're in. We play. We're the only unconventional conference in the country, so we play Thursdays and Saturdays. There's positives and negatives to it, but that gives us that Friday practice in between to make changes and go over a few things for preparation, which is actually kind of nice. But early in the week, well, almost every practice, we'll start with a good warm up just to get the goalies gauged, get everybody some touches, get everybody's feet moving a little bit. And then we'll get into probably a flow drill or two. Sometimes a heavy flow drill if it's early in the week. And then in the meat of the practice, we'll typically be doing game situational things. Now that could be, sometimes it's 5-on-5, sometimes it's a progression drill that might start as a 2-on-2 and then work its way up to a 5-on-5. We just do a lot of different variations, ending with 5-on-5 in those practices in the meat, or in the drills in the meat of our practices. Towards the end, we may work in some small games, some small area games for some competition, or just for some fun. And that'll kind of be what we'll usually finish practices with in the first half of our week. So with games being Thursdays and Saturdays, typically Wednesdays and Fridays are obviously a lot lighter. Probably not doing any small games unless we're just looking to have some fun to keep it light. But not a lot of contact, not a lot of heavy pace drills, really just skating, moving, getting the touches, getting the goalies, the touches they need, and get them gauged on their angles. Might work on some position specific stuff, bringing the forwards down to one end and working on some scoring drills with them, and then working on puck retrievals with defensemen as well.
That's great, coach. A couple things on that, like, that schedule is pretty difficult. Like, I remember coaching high school hockey in New Hampshire, and it was Wednesday and Saturday, and it was tough to kind of fit in everything when you're doing like a progressive format, when you're trying to, incorporate skills or skating or things like that. Now, obviously, the college game is much different, but where do you find time for skills? Or do you do that on separate days or beginning of the season, or how do you incorporate that kind of stuff in your program?
I think we'll do it. We kind of feel the team out a little bit, but certainly
Yeah.
early in the season. We do have some Monday and Wednesday mornings where we have extra ice that can be utilized more for the skills. We do that. Did that the whole first semester, and we're going to continue to do that this semester as well. But as far as in structured practices, we'll do some skills kind of built into drills, not necessarily by themselves. If we do it, we'll typically do it when it's in those position specific drills like I spoke about. But certainly toward the end of the season, less is more a little bit. Guys are kind of tired of listening to us. So we'll definitely build in some different practices then. We'll shorten our actual team practices quite a bit through the month of February, really. Just to keep the guys fresh. We'll leave extra time at the end of every practice to work on stuff. We can build in some skill drills there too for the guys that want it.
Well, that's a good question. How long are your typical practices at the college level?
Typical practices are an hour and a half. And then, like I said, we've got that extra ice in the morning where we can have anywhere. Mondays and Wednesdays are the easiest days with the rink. So we could have up to 2 hours of ice in the morning if we wanted to. So
that's fantastic.
For the guys that can get there with their class schedule, they can definitely capitalize on those times.
Now you also have, your own children playing hockey. And this is kind of aside from the college stuff. What have you seen out of, if you were creating an ideal program for your boys, how would that youth practice, what would that look like for you if you were creating that ideal practice at the youth level?
So yeah, I've got a 7-year-old son. He plays, he did U8 last year. He's on a lower U10 team this year, just so he can get some full ice experience. I think, it's a small team. I think there's only 10 or 11 skaters, depending on the day. I think doing, skills and stuff like that with those kids is obviously great. Skating, any skating drill, power skating stuff, drills where they're getting a lot of touches in the skill drills, and just working on their spatial awareness, really. It's not necessarily, you want them to execute, but just understanding their bodies and how it works when you got a 3-foot stick to kind of work with the perception of what that is versus where your eyes are. So I think, seeing a lot more of that with the coaches, that they're really doing a lot of skills coupled with skating in the drills, which is great. I would personally like to see them do more games, whether it be small games or just, a controlled scrimmage and on half of the ice or something like that. I think the players gain a lot from just playing the game and just understanding, where to be, when to be there, and timing. I think, the ADM model and the skill development has been tremendous. I mean, you look at the U.S. junior team right now and how skilled they are. But I think their skating is phenomenal too. But I think we've gotten away a little bit from just the play and the hockey sense, the hockey IQ piece a little bit, unintentionally for sure. But I'd like to see a little bit more gameplay, I think, with the younger kids and but keep the skills and the skating and heavily involved. But I would like to see, like, our kids have 2 to 3 practices a week. I'd like to see, 15 minutes of one of those practices just be dedicated to some games. I think the kids would love it, and I think they would benefit a ton from it.
No, I agree with you, Coach. I think that those small area games and adding constraints to those games really makes a big difference. And
Yeah.
I certainly seen it with my kids' team. It just gets them thinking. Oh, I got to make a play here in order to score a goal over there. I got to move the puck here. We have to move away from the
Yep.
puck. It really creates a different dynamic. And like you said, you can't get that as much when you're just doing go around this cone or go to this spot. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to get that feel for the game as much.
Yeah, I just think that, the kids, the way that they play without the puck is the most important thing. And if they're doing so many skills, touches, and stuff like that, they almost always have a puck on their stick. So they kind of don't know what to do when they don't have it.
That's a great point. Trevor, what do you got for Coach?
So, Coach, yeah, thanks again for coming on. The big thing that I would, I'm curious about throughout the season, especially we talk about drills and progressions and such. Where do you guys at the collegiate level? What does your practices? I know we've touched on skills and such, but trying to build up systems and understanding of how you want your players to play, because obviously at college, you do bring in a new class every year and you rotate out. So how do you guys go about teaching those things from the beginning of the season to maybe say middle, you're basically your third quarter of the season?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question, Trevor. I think the biggest thing that we preach and really deconstruct to construct it our own way every year is our defensive zone play. I think, like, we got to be on the same page as a 5-man unit there, really 6. So goalies know where shots are going to come from and what to expect. But I found that this year, where last year we had a really heavy senior class of defensemen, and this year obviously we don't. So we had some growing pains kind of in there, where these guys are super talented. They can skate, they can all move the puck, they can shoot the puck, they can do all the fun stuff, but they were missing on some cues just simply because they don't have the experience. So
Right.
so that's why we go back to doing a lot of 5-on-5 in practice, so we can get as good of a game look as we can against each other. So we can learn about what our structure looks like in the defensive zone. I think as we move up the ice, I think we have less structure, if you want to use a word for it. We definitely have an overall philosophy. But structurally, off in the offensive zone, we have cues on things, but we don't like to do a lot of structure there because I want them to be creative. I want them to be comfortable making plays. We have a ton of time to recover if the play that they're trying to make doesn't happen. But I think what we've learned with this group this year being so young, like I talked about on the defensive end, is that our neutral zone, we're better when we just move the puck up ice quick in the neutral zone. So we kind of dumbed it down a little bit this year, whereas years past we could make the guys think a little bit more because they had a lot more experience. Where this year it's like, boys, I want you to move your feet, get the puck up the ice, and we'll try to re-enter the zone as quickly as we can. So that puts a little bit of accountability on the forwards to get out of the zone quick so they can be an option on the re-entry. But those are, we talk a lot about philosophy and less about structure. But where we have the most structure is definitely in our defensive zone.
No, yeah, absolutely. I think I love hearing that. That's what we do for all teams. I mean, you want to have your structure in the defensive zone, and then as soon as you get out, you don't want to pigeonhole kids into like lanes and
Yep.
stuff, which at the youth
Exactly.
level here. I've heard, unfortunately, too many times, like, oh, if you're a right wing, you stay on the right side, and it's like,
Yeah.
what? No, no. And I know that
Yeah.
doesn't
Yeah.
happen with you guys, but
Yeah. Well,
um,
like, I think it's, for the level too. Like when you have kids that just don't understand, then you go way, way, way back and make it super simple for them. But then when it's the in between, when they do know what they're doing, it's like, yeah, you want to let them be creative and understand, like, oh, I'm the right wing, but I'm on the left side of the ice right now. Maybe I don't have to go all the way over there.
no, absolutely. So my last question would be, I mean, obviously you've had a ton of success and you've done a phenomenal job as an NCAA Division III coach. What would you attribute in your practices to that success?
Um, I think two things. I think the amount of gameplay, whether it be small area games or just 5-on-5 stuff that we do, even if it's just sometimes we'll just do face-offs and we'll just really hammer face-offs, face-offs, face-offs on both sides of the puck. Um, but I think I don't know. I know you don't want to talk about off ice, but our off ice habits have a lot to do with it too. Where we've got a really phenomenal weight room here on campus that the guys have access to, and our strength coach is phenomenal, and he's really helped kind of elevate that culture for us, which has been a huge piece. But as far as on ice, I just think the compete level. I think that's what it's been. Every team is different every year. Like you said, you get new faces. Some years there's only 4 or 5 new guys, and then there's years like this year where we've got 15 new guys. So um, just making sure that their compete level is up every day and trying to make your practices harder so that games seem a little bit easier.
No, absolutely. And hey, well, Coach Trimble and I will talk about anything related to hockey, whether it's on ice, off ice, whatever. But no, thanks. I mean, that's very insightful, and it definitely, I mean, what you do off the ice does affect what you do on the ice too. So that's a great point.
Yeah, like I said, we only have an hour and a half on the ice, and some days, most days, we'll do an ice cut in between just so the ice stays pretty good, and that takes 15 minutes away. So really, it's only an hour and 15 minutes. So we really want to get the most out of that hour 15. That we really rely on the weight room right afterwards for the guys to really push themselves and keep themselves in really, really good shape, which they do. They do a great job with.
Coach, before we let you go, and I know you got little kids at home, so I'm not going to keep you too long. But you hit on something about a compete level and doing that in practice. What is a drill at home that you could, describe to a coach who's listening to this that creates that compete level and builds that compete level into practice? Are there specific drills that you do that you've seen been very effective at the college level?
I think it's more of a mentality than it is a drill. We talk a lot about the mental game. The mental game is such an overlooked piece, but it's really just being in the right headspace when we get into a drill and just making it game like and whatever it calls for. If it's a simple warm up drill where it's a forward passing it to the D and they go D to D and then they've got to find somebody in a lane and then they've got to do it again. It's about making those reps count and playing against an imaginary opponent. And maybe even though it's only a warm up drill, you can still do it. And do you have to do it, with the utmost intensity? No, but you can't just go through the motions. We're not pro hockey players. We don't do this for a living. We're not earning millions of dollars doing it. So, our headspace has got to be correct. And we've really got to be competing, within ourselves to have that discipline to do, to get the most out of everything that we do. So we definitely will have days where it's just it's a compete day where it's just small games. It'll be green versus white. We'll kind of put something on the line. It'll be, fun, but the guys will really get after it. But we expect our defensemen to compete just as hard as our forwards are trying to compete for pucks on the wall or space in front of the net or something like that. So I think, no matter the drill that we're doing, that's kind of our philosophy is a standard that we've set that we expect there to be, an internal compete level within everybody for each rep that they do in every drill.
I love that, Coach. That's fantastic information, and really, Trevor and I really appreciate you coming on, and we wish you a ton of success as you get closer here in the NCAA tournament coming up. So good luck, Coach.
I appreciate it, guys. Thanks again for having me.
Best of luck and thanks.
All right. Well, once again, thanks again to Coach Craig Russell, the head coach at Plymouth State University, for jumping on the podcast with us. He gave us some great insight, and he's had a ton of success for the Plymouth Panthers. Trevor, what'd you take from the interview?
I think the biggest thing was it wasn't even the drills aspect. I really, really liked what he was saying about, a lot of, how they build their program, starts off the ice and what they're doing off the ice. And I think, that not only made me think about specifically like, okay, doing off ice training, but also like, what are you instilling off the ice for your team that leads into practice? And I think a lot of that is, um, if you want to play with pace, you got to practice with pace. So you need to say like, hey, boys, or girls, we need pace here. We need to be moving our feet, And again, obviously, you can slow, as we talked about, slow drills down, but you want to pick them back up so that you're playing with that pace. If you want to be physical, well, you're gonna have to be a little bit physical in practices. Obviously, you tone it down towards game time. And I really thought that was unique that they play Thursdays, have a day off, and then they go back and play Friday or Saturdays, um, because you can completely readjust everything from your Thursday night game for better preparation for that Saturday game. What about yourself, Coach?
Yeah, no, I agree with you that the MASCAC, that's what Plymouth State is in. They're in the MASCAC, which is NCAA Division III. It's one of the divisions within that bracket, and everything is probably within, I'd say, 3 hours of one another. So it's easier to travel when your travel is limited like that. A lot of other conferences, they have to play Saturday, Sunday because you may have a 7 hour bus trip on Saturday morning or something like that. So that's kind of an advantage, I think, that where they can get those one nights, like you said, one night game, and then you can practice the next day and prepare for that following game. The thing I thought that was best about what Coach Russell said is pretty much what you articulated as well, that it's the culture and the compete level that makes the drills more effective. You can have the best drills in the world. You can have these super, advanced and difficult drills, but if the players are going half speed in those drills, it's not going to translate positively to the game. So you need to have a culture of uh, you know, teamwork, playing together, putting in the effort, high compete level in order for your team to really maximize the practice time.
No, absolutely. And that's again, we appreciate it, Coach Russell for coming out, and we wish him the best of luck the rest of the season.
Absolutely. Now, Trev, what do you got for 5 minutes? You're up first, buddy.
Well, this week we got 5 myths of drills, hockey drills, not just any drills, but I mean, I guess it could be any drills. But I got the run to here of the 1, 3, and 5. So, to start the 5 myths of drills, I'm gonna say that the first myth is that drills can't be messy. And they got to be perfect, and um, that's I think that's false. That's not true. When you're teaching anything to any new group, especially a new drill for the very first time, it's okay to be messy. It's okay to for it not to be perfect. It's kind of like the object is for it to you got to get better. If it just you went out and you did it perfectly from the get go, then clearly you don't need to work on it, right? Um, I took that from Coach Dave Laszlo, um, who's coaching, I believe, still in Europe. But that was one thing he had said during conversation was, what, let it be messy. Who cares? Like, let the drills just be how they are. And if they don't start off well, fine. Oh well, let it see if it works out. And if it doesn't, then you move on. And okay, then it didn't work out. Any thoughts
I
there,
agree with
Coach?
you. Yeah, I agree with you 1,000% because I think that oftentimes you don't really get to where you want to get to with the drill until that meat part of like if you have 10 minutes a segment for like 10 minutes of the drills, you don't really get to that place of trial and error to success until maybe the third or fourth minute. So if you're blowing the whistle after the first minute and then resetting and blowing the whistle again, you never get to that good part of the drill. It's a kind of a personal thing. I usually let you know, um, I'll draw up the drill. We might go through the first 2 or 3 reps, and they might be failure reps, like they might not get it for those first 2 or 3. I might interject and say something as they're doing the drill, like tape to tape passes, no indirect passes. Maybe present a good target. Call for the puck, stop
Yep.
in the net, whatever it may be, and then it starts to get a little bit better, and I don't have to stop them doing the drill or missing their rep to call everybody in. So I agree with you 1,000%. I think it's overlooked sometimes too.
Absolutely. What do you got for number 2, Coach?
Number 2, basic drills are for basic drills are for advanced players.
Hmm.
I think that drills are for players. That's it. Now, basic drills can be used by advanced players and they can get a lot out of it. Basic players might not be able to get advanced drills. And that's where you have to kind of like stop those things sometimes. Like you maybe not incorporate that into practice. But I think if you look at guys like Sidney Crosby, if you look at training videos for Connor McDavid, they're still doing stuff on their edges. They're still reinforcing these basic habits that they need to be successful. I love videos online of, Brad Marchand and Sidney Crosby in one-on-one puck battles. Like that stuff's great. And that's a basic drill, which you don't even have to draw up on a dry erase board, but they're doing it 100 times a game. What are your thoughts, Trev?
I think it's I agree with you on this. I think the biggest thing is that it's easier for entry level players to do obviously the entry level ones, but I think it's still easy for the advanced level players, and I say easy because of my lack of English today. I promise I'm not on anything that's illegal or even legal. Basically, I think like advanced players, as you said, they can go back to those basic drills. Um, and I think a drill's a drill, as you said. So yeah, I agree. I don't know where I'm going with this. I agree. It's one of those nights.
No, but I mean, I think there's a place where you can, if you do too many basic drills, players don't advance. You have to incorporate as players get older, more constraints and more level of more difficulty. But I do think getting back to basics, there's always a place for that.
Absolutely. I mean, with when you look back and you've talked about those videos, for sure there is, you see a lot of guys, especially right when they're getting back after taking a couple weeks off from the season, they're going right back to those basic drills of, footwork and shooting technique, and it's nothing crazy. It's stuff that you work with, learn to skate kids with. So, I 100% agree with that. Um, and I think people who don't are crazy.
What do you got for three?
So number three is it's okay not to have a practice plan. And this is just basic. I mean, this is just basic, just human. Why am I struggling? This is just basic hockey coach 101. You always need to have a practice plan or at least something in place. Um, I can't tell you how many times I would go, I go on the ice or I'm watching from the stands. And you can tell when coaches don't have a practice plan. It's because the kids are screwing off half the time, or they're not paying attention, or and then you ask the coach, like, oh, what are you planning? Oh, we were gonna do this, but like have something in place, a little bit of structure. And I'm not saying you can't have unstructured time because there's nothing wrong with that, but going onto a 60 or 90-minute ice slot with no plan in place, in my opinion, is just a complete waste of however many dollars your program or yourself is paying. Um, it doesn't make sense not to have something done. And I've seen it happen. I've seen, oh, we're going to skate them a little bit here. And then, okay, what's the next drill? And again, it takes a little bit of work to be a good coach and to have good practices. And as we talked about before, where I was watching that, Mites one, if, wherever I was, um, if you really think about it and you sit there and say, how can I maximize the amount of ice that we have? They could have been easily have just taken that drill and added it to the other side as well. And now you're doing it twice. Kids are getting reps compared to not sitting around. Um, and those are things that if you actually have a practice plan written out, you might actually see that. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It might even just be writing out what the drills are. But at least it lets you process what you're doing and have an idea of attack instead of just going into it with, we might do this, we might do that, we might, we could do this. Like, no, have something in place. And if you want to have a little bit of unstructured time or time where you can throw in a drill here or there, whatever, that's fine. But at least be mostly structured with it.
I agree 100%, Trevor. I think it's like showing up to work in your pajamas. Like
Yeah.
you got to have, and parents notice. Parents notice that. That's the first thing they're going to notice if you go out there and you're, winging it. If you're going to get a parent complaint about Johnny's not getting enough ice time, they're gonna come back with, well, you don't even you don't even have a practice plan. And then you're
Yeah.
setting yourself up for failure. So I would say that 1,000%, you need to have at least the framework of what the schedule would look like. Kids don't just show up for school and be like, oh, we got school today. What's
I'm
up
gonna go to
next?
gym. Yeah, let's go to gym.
They have a schedule, and that's what a practice plan really is. It's like, between this 10 minutes, we're doing this. Between this 10 minutes, we're doing this. And it's a schedule for your ice session. So you need to have that.
Exactly. What do you got for number 4, coach?
Number 4, you can't run practice with one goalie. So I had we first started our midget program. We hired a midget coach, and it's a split season midget program. So a couple years ago, he would freak out at me, be like, Coach, what am I going to do out there? I only have one goalie. Can we call? It's like 10 minutes before practice is going to start. He's like, oh, can we call up a local kid? And it's like, dude, you just got to adjust your practice plan. You got one goalie. That's okay. It's not he'll face more shots. It's not a big deal, but you got to figure it out for practice. I've had other people complain about, I've seen the high school team here locally that has, had one goalie, and it's like they only used one half of the ice for the full season of practice. And it's like, that just seems really silly. So I think that it might take a little more thinking outside the box. You might have to structure your practices a little bit differently, but if you have one goalie, that's just an opportunity for that goalie to face more shots. It's not that you can't do full ice drills, and not that you can't have 2 nets on the ice. You have to have one net. You have to figure out how to use that goalie and that ice effectively.
No, from my standpoint, I've coached teams where I've only had one goalie, and yeah, we would always like 2 goalies, not only just for the drill's sake, but also for the team's sake and for the development of the goalies themselves. Where I believe when you've got 2 goalies, that you can really, it's a lot easier to create competition and development that way. Whereas if you've just got one, it's not that it's not easy, but it's more difficult. It's not as easy as it would be if you had 2. But you guys really have to be on the goalie to keep pushing them to get better. But to circle back to that, yeah, I've had plenty of teams where I've only had one goalie. And as you said, yeah, you just have to be cognizant of it, and you have to, have drills that you can run that still utilizes, the amount of ice that you have, with just said one goalie. And again, we do have tools out there as coaches that we can use. You can if you have it, you can put up a shooter tutor.
Absolutely.
You can put borders up, whatever you have to do to kind of give the players, just instead of just an empty net, because honestly, having an empty net, I feel like sometimes is just a waste. Hell, put a stick on top of the net and the netting where the goalie usually puts their water bottle, and tell the kids, like, you got to shoot and you got to make the stick pop up, whatever. Um, there are
I
ways
agree
to
with you.
do it. There are ways to do it. So, I think, having one goalie, that's just a cop out. That just means you're not prepared as a coach. And you just need to, again, I've had practices where I've had no goalies. You just figure it out. You have to. You can't just sit there and throw your arms up. So,
Absolutely. You got to think outside the box sometimes.
absolutely.
Well, I got a good story about my one goalie.
Yeah, go
Ready?
for it. I'm ready.
Okay. So I moved up to New Hampshire, 2012-13 season. I was coaching 2 teams. I was with the local junior program here that was existing before the Wolves. And I got kind of stir crazy. And in October, I took a job on the other side of Lake Winnipesaukee, and I coached Kingswood High School.
Okay.
And Kingswood High School hadn't had a winning season in like a decade. They had 16 kids on the team, and they had one goalie, and his name was Sean Goggins. And he was a senior. He was okay in that. So let's say that. So we had a good training camp, and we had a lot of confidence coming out of that, gearing up for our first game. And he goes to the first game, and we lost 8-1 to Dover. And I looked at my assistant coach, who's now the head coach over there, Mike Potenza, and I said, Mike, it looked like he didn't see the puck at all tonight. Like looked like he was like looking through a fog. And he said, well, he does wear glasses. And I was like, oh my God. How is my one who has glasses not wearing his freaking glasses? So we go through the season. He starts wearing the glasses. He's got the rec specs underneath his cage. We go on a run. We won something like 8 straight. We make it all the way to the state semifinals.
Love it.
And
yeah.
I still got one goalie, right? So we get up on Bedford High School. It's 1-0. Midway through the second period, and Bedford was like the number 1 seed, and we're doing okay. And behind the net, it's like he saw that raw meat behind the net, and he ran them hard.
Man.
And I was like, oh crap, the glasses go flying off, the helmet's off.
Oh,
They gave the kid a penalty, 2 minutes, but it was like he knows I got one goalie. I'm screwed. So next shift they score one shorthanded, they score another one to end the period. He's totally rattled. We go into the third, down 2-1. We ended up tying it, and then we did eventually lose 3-2. But that was my one goalie season. Sean Goggins, big shout out to your brother. It was a lot of fun that year having him in nets. But once we figured out that's his thing, he was pretty good. He was pretty good.
It's only a problem. Once the puck's, just get all your shots below the circle. It's fine. No big deal. That's one of the things that as a coach, I sit there and I mean, as a player, you kind of think about it, and I've had that happen too when I played. It was probably my junior season. We were out in Indiana, and we were playing. We had only one goalie, and we were just creaming this team. And he was, I mean, we weren't creaming him. He was just standing at his head. Let me rephrase that. And he was playing fantastic. And he was an underclassman. And we were playing a team. And again, these guys were just. It looked like they probably should have been in college. I mean, they were all probably drinking age. It felt like. And these guys, they did finally. One of their players just chipped the puck behind the net. Coming in the offensive zone, and Andrew, was his name. He went behind the net and he stopped it, and he turned around to go back to the front of the net, and the kid didn't even it was clear as day. He was looking to take him out, and he fucking plastered him. We were ready to jump the bench. I wasn't on the ice, or I would have been all over that kid. And the kid he knew what he was doing, and the coaches are starting to bark at each other. And I mean, it was just that rattled him. It rattled, there was nothing we could do. Thank God he was not, severely injured. He was still able to play. Who knows if he had a concussion? Nobody checked back then. But we ended up losing. They broke the dam, and it just got chippy from there. But it was, I just sit there as a coach, and I'm like, I would never tell any. And again, I'm sure the coach didn't, but it wouldn't surprise me back in the early 2000s if a coach did this. But I'm sure it happened in the 80s and 90s. But I would never send a player after another team's goalie just to get that competitive edge. And fine, maybe I'm not cutthroat, and maybe I'm not made out to be, a top team coach over at fucking wherever. But that's just so shitty to do. It just means your team can't, your team's just not good enough. So yeah, no, those that
You never had a
happens.
player run behind the net? You call out hand hand.
And no, not lately. We still got those hand signals, but we don't pull them out too much. So, um, yeah, that was a trip down memory lane. I completely forgot about that. Yeah, it was Indiana too when it was a tournament. Fuckers, man. God, now that pisses me off. But all right, well, number 5 here. It's been a lot. We've gone through all my emotions. We've gone through just me being completely brain dead to being pissed off, being happy, jovial. I mean, this is one for the books, folks.
It's going to be a new year.
It's a new year, and this will be hopefully the last time it goes in this direction. But number 5 is stealing drills is bad. People, I think there's coaches out there that pride themselves on coming up with their own drills or taking them from, just one source. But I think some of the best coaches that I've had, I mean, everybody's got a drill. Everybody runs the St. Louis drill at some point in their coaching career where and again, I call it the St. Louis drill. You might call it, something else, but it's, the lightning drill, or where the kid comes out of the corner during warmups, gets a pass from the other corner and comes in and shoots. Everybody's steals drills. Everybody's ran that, or the horseshoe, that's what it's called. Everybody runs those drills. So if I see a coach running a drill, and I've seen plenty of them, and it might be a coach who I think's a really good coach. It might be a coach that I was like, yeah, you need work on some stuff. But if I see a drill that I like, I'm going to steal it. If I want to use it and my team needs to use it and it's hitting things that I could use, or maybe later, I'll steal it. And I think some of the best coaches, at least practice wise, drill wise, are some of the best at stealing other coaches' ideas and other coaches' drills. That's my opinion. Yeah.
I agree with 1,000%, Trevor. I think actually stealing drills is essential.
It is. I no, you're right.
I
100%.
I mean, you learn by watching and gathering information. I think another podcast I listened to an interview with Ken Hitchcock, and he said, and he's he probably has 800 NHL wins, and he said that most of the drills and his coaching philosophy was stolen uh, from the coach at University of Alberta when he was up coaching in the Western Hockey League. He learned a lot from, I think his name was Claire or something like that. That might have been his last name, but he was a coach at University of Alberta, and he learned most of his coaching philosophy and most of his drills right from him. So if the best can do it,
Well,
I
I
think
can't.
we can. I think I can incorporate some of those ideas at the Mite level.
What's funny is that actually a listener of ours, the 2013 head coach, Randy Swarzel, who listens, and you know, I think he's a good coach, and he's last week before, right before Christmas, or was it right before or right after? Maybe it was right before. Yeah, it was right before. We did a combined practices. Like I said, we've been doing those combined ones. And he threw out his drills and he sent them to me. And again, he hand drew them and perfectly fine. And I saw them and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna steal a couple of these. So Randy, if you're listening, which I hope you are, this will probably be after I see you. But hey, yeah, thanks for the drills because I will definitely be running a few of those.
And then my way too, Trev. I always want more drills.
Oh, absolutely, I will. I mean, again, so that's always the best part, I think, of, as a coach, working with other coaches, and doing things. I've learned so much. This is no longer talking about one individual. So just all the coaches I've worked with, whether they are fresh, coaches and they saw something they liked and they wanted to give it a go or whatever. I mean, there's drills that I've ran with players that you've ran with midget players that professional teams are running. Like, I think I think it was Scott Powers of The Athletic wrote a article. It was probably 2 years ago when Jeremy Colleton got wherever he is. Good luck. When he was the head coach of the Blackhawks, and they talked about he talked about one of his drill, like one of his practices. He went through every drill. He took video of it, and like it was a great article. And I'm sitting here looking at it, and as I'm reading it, I'm like, I've got these parents that think they got all the answers. This is not this year, so this is a couple of years ago. I've got all the answers. Think, their kids aren't getting a lot out of the practices. We don't do, this and that, and true complaints. And again, I bash my head in the wall when I read these, but, and then here I look at it and I go, and I'm reading the article, and at least four of the drills they do, the Blackhawks, are drills that are similar or the same exact drills that we have been working on with my 16U team. Same fucking drills. So granted, Colleton got fired, and actually eventually so did I. But long story short, what I'm trying to say is if it works at the pro level and it makes sense at the level you're working at, again, I had 16 years, so it made sense with those kids, because they weren't that advanced drills. They were just drills to work on certain situations. They're good enough for the pros, and I can get them to work here. And parents, you don't know what you're talking about. That is mic drop.
Well, I think that's a good way to end it, Trev. And I couldn't agree more. I think this is a great episode and will give a lot of information to families and coaches and parents. And thanks again to head coach Craig Russell of Plymouth State for jumping on and sharing all your insight and input. And happy New Year's, guys. Everybody, hope you have a wonderful. We'll be getting some more content each and every month with Trevor and I, and it'll be a lot of fun going forward in 2024.
Absolutely. And so again, parents, I do love you. Don't worry about it. So yeah, as I am Trevor DiCarlo,
I'm Andrew Trimble.
and thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.